Well, good evening. I wanted to do a real quick and dirty on these LIPOs. I've done this video twice already, but I keep getting some weird noises. Aside from the fan that's running on the charger and the upright fan I have going because it's hot as balls outside. And then the central air kicks in and I'm in the garage, so naturally that gets in the way. So, yeah, we'll just go from there. We'll deal with it. So really quick, we ran these LIPOs today. This is a 2S 5000 milliamp 30C discharge hard case from Reaction. This is a 3S Protek 3600 milliamp 3 cell. It's actually a lithium high voltage battery. So you can see it says 11.4 volts there as a baseline. Normally it's 11.1 on a regular LiPo. So it'll charge, that extra 3/10 of a volt once you get to the top. Now today when we used it, I only used it to the standard um, LiPo charge, which is 12.6 volts on the top. This is an Eco Power 2200 milliamp 3 cell. It's a 45C discharge. Cool little lightweight battery. And this is my standard. These are Turnigy heavy duty 2200 milliamp 60C discharge 3 cells. Now they come standard with the XT60 plug, which I do prefer, and I've had to make a few adapters. Yeah, I had to make 2 or 3 adapters for these. I have bought a few in the past. If you've ever seen any of the plug style adapters to go from Dean's to XT60, I've had a few problems where the pins have pulled out of them. Um, so I really don't use those anymore. I just make adapters, some wire, and 2 plugs. That's pretty much it. So the capacity, obviously the voltage is different on these two. We'll get into that in a sec, but what we're going to do is go over the rigs. Today we actually ran these 1.9 Wraiths. The blue one is my son's, and the yellow and gray one is mine. They're very similar setups. They're still running old style SCX10 um, geared axles. He's still running the original housings, and I'm running TKO 10 version 2s from Ot 6 Racing. They're both running beef tubes. They have a little bit of weight on the bottom end. I don't believe I have any weight in mine, in my wheels, but he does have, I believe, 3/4 of an ounce in each front wheel. Plus, he's running Crawler Innovations Deuce's Wild single stage chromes. So he has a little bit more weight on the bottom in the front than I do. Um, but we both do have aluminum C-hubs, knuckles, lockouts, and then we're both running universal axles in the front. You can see that we're both also running Savox servos. I believe I get about 100 ounces more in pull weight than he does, but for Savox servos, they all tend to pull a lot of amperage. So that's that's the trade-off. High volt, you get the high torque, but it pulls a lot of amperage. That much amperage does require BEC. We're both running Castle Creations BECs hooked up to Holmes Hobbies BRXLs. Um, and mine are still mounted in the front, which I'm probably going to change soon because it made so much more room having it put in the back like his. His is actually in the back under a deck lid, hidden back there under a fuel cell or toolbox or something, and then there's like a fire extinguisher or something under there. So that's the rundown, basic rundown of these trucks. Basic trail truck setups, nothing wild. We're still running brushed motors, obviously. He's running a 35 turn Holmes Hobbies, I think it's a Torque Master, and I am running a 13 turn Crawl Master, which is a 5-slot motor. It's extremely smooth on the startup and has an excellent burst of wheel speed. This setup I actually used at Axial Fest for about half my trails, but I was using a different tire at the time. I just put these on as a trail tire because I found some, I was able to get, somebody was parting out a kit and I got some of these Vanquish products. I can't remember what they're named, but they're the plastic wheel with the aluminum rim. We're just trying them out, testing them. So those are the rigs we ran them in. Extremely similar weights, extremely similar setups. All metal links, whether they're solid or all thread or mix and match, whatever. But they're all custom links. Actually, I think his are all solid now. We've done a bit of moving around, so they're very, very, very similar rigs. Now, on the startup of the run, he ran this 2S, and I ran this 3S. Just to prove a point that extra weight and less voltage but more capacity equals less weight, more voltage, and less capacity. It might sound weird, but these two actually came out almost exactly the same in voltage when we were done with the initial part of the run. I am currently conditioning these batteries so I'm not going below 50%. I think they only went down to 68% or some such. I'll post a picture of that voltage with this video. And then also I have two of these Eco Power that we ran on the way back. And again, we ended with extremely similar voltage. And he loves 3S. I have to admit that, yeah, he's a driver. He felt the difference between this, which is, you know, this 2S. Pretty much just left him at a walking trail speed. He did get to a good jog at some point, but the truck honestly wasn't keeping up with him. So, you know, as a walking trail LIPO, yeah, excellent. You know, it fit in his rig just fine. But that's the problem we have, is his rig is the only rig that fits hard case LIPOs of this size or larger. Whereas this, as a comparative, you can see the case is actually shorter. It's not as tall when stood up. The width is really similar. I think the width is probably really, really, really close. But the weight is also, the 2S is a little bit heavier, but I would imagine if that 5,000 milliamp were a 3-cell, it would be significantly heavier than this Protek 3600. So yeah, they ended up similar voltage, went the same distance, but when you're talking about less voltage and more weight, that's the trade-off. So that was just a point I've always wanted to prove. And I've done it before with other people, but I've never really mentioned it on video. Now this is a pretty standard LIPO, 45C. The great thing is it is small and light, so it fits in everything that we have. With a 45C punch, I could actually run. I wouldn't feel too bad running that in this truck. It's heavy, and that's why I got these heavy-duty Turnigies, was because it's brushless, it's heavy, and it gets beat up. And so that's what I needed the extra discharge for. But as for using these on a regular trail run with that truck, I would have no problem at all doing that. It would actually do the job just fine, as long as I'm not getting it bound up or racing it around, or, you know, doing the normal stupid stuff we tend to do on a few of these trail walks. So yeah, that's just a quick rundown. I dig these. I have been looking for this setup in a LIPO for very, very, very long time. Anywhere from 3,300 to 3,600, like as it sits, with a higher discharge in a 3S LIPO. Now they do come with Dean's plugs. You know, it's a pretty standard thing. But I notice, and since I switched a few years ago, more and more people are starting to use these XT60s and the XT90s. Turnigy's even using XT90s in their higher discharge and larger LIPOs now. But I really dig the XT60. It's a lot easier to unplug, plug and unplug. But I tend to help the Deans or the T-plug or whatever you want to call it, I'll take a little bit of silicone shock fluid and stick it on the male portion of the plug, and that helps it, you know, go in and out better. Yeah, so I think that's where we end the video right there. Quick rundown. Thanks for listening. I'll talk to you guys later.